This conference will now be recorded.
Hello. Welcome all. So we will be starting this session in 15 minutes. Let others join in and then we'll start. Hello all, welcome to this session with Python, programming with Python. So we will be starting this session at 11:30. Let others join in. So will begin at 11:30. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Ashish Bansal. So I have around 8 years of experience in the field of IT industry. So I'm working as a data science specialist. I'm also working with IBM as a consultant. So in this lecture, in this session, programming with Python, it has been divided into 4 parts. In the first part, I'll give you an introduction to Python. In the second part, we will be covering the Anaconda and Spider IDE. And we would be also working with some of the basics program which you can get into your interview, right? And in the second part, we will be covering the machine learning and deep learning concepts. I would be giving you brief introduction about what is AI, what is machine learning, and what is deep learning. Okay, and what does industry demands from you of being an engineer, right? And also I will give you the brief introduction about what are the jobs that are enrolling the market in terms of data science and in terms of Python and with Python with AI, right? We would be covering this topic, and in the last session we would be dealing with your question and answers. Okay, so I think the all the audience has been joined. Around 23 people have joined with us, right? Okay, so it's 1 minute remaining. So let's start. Okay. Okay, in this lecture, we would be dealing about what is data science, what are the tools required for data science, and history of Python, and we will be covering about the Python IDEs. Okay, so now, as you already know that we live in a world that is drowning in data. So data is generated from various sources. Whether you take a website, whether you take a smartphone, whether do you take an electronic sensor, the real-time information is being generating at a millisecond, right? Also, the e-commerce websites collect purchasing habits of the customer. So data is everywhere. So with so much data, we need to do some inference. We need to predict something. Okay. So at this place, data science comes in. So what is the data science? So it is an interdisciplinary field that brings together computer science, statistics, and mathematics to extract useful insights from your data. Okay. So basically, with this huge amount of data that you are having, so you wanted to generate some useful insights from that data. You wanted to analyze the data and you wanted to arrive at better business decisions, right? So you need some tools to process and analyze this data. I give you an example. I am a grocery store owner. Okay, I handle a large store in which there are around 10,000 products in my store. Every day, millions of customers come to my store with their different purchasing habits. So data has been recorded on the daily basis. So with this huge amount of data, I wanted to predict what kind of products I need to procure in the coming months. So what I do is I hire a data scientist. I give this data to the data scientist and tell him that you need to find out which products I need to buy more or I need to procure or which products I don't need to procure. Got it? So now the job of the data scientist is to analyze this data, do some computer science, statistics, and mathematics to extract useful insights from the data. Okay. Now this problem statement I'll quote throughout this slide. Now, next is what are the popular tools that are used in data science? First, we have the data pre-processing and the analysis. That can be done by Microsoft Excel, SAS, SPSS. Also, with Python and R programming, we can also do the data pre-processing. What do you mean by data pre-processing? So the data which you get is often unstructured data. That it is not structured, it consists of some null values, it is faulty or bad data, you can say that. So this data need to be cleaned up. So there are various libraries in Python in which that does the cleaning part. So that is used for data analysis and data pre-processing. Although you can do the same task with Microsoft Excel also, but in case of big data or large amount of data, it does not support it. And SAS and SPS, these are also widely used tools, but they are chargeable. Then comes the data exploration and visualization. This, you need to visualize your data and show it to your clients. So Tableau, ClickView are the tools which are used for data exploration and visualization. So there's a high demand of Tableau and QlikView in the market. Then in case of parallel and distributed computing, in case of big data, that it's Apache Spark and Apache Hadoop, right? So these are the popular tools which are used in data science for your analysis, pre-processing, visualization, and in case of parallel and distributing computing. All these tools which are written easily interact with Python language. Then we come with evolution of Python. Python was developed by Gordon van Rossum in the late 80s at the National Research Institute for Mathematics and Computer Science at Netherlands. So far, starting from 1991 up till now, there are so many versions that have been evolved. The current version which Python has released is 3.8, but the stable version is Python 3.7. Now, what do you mean by stable version? So Python works with lot many libraries. So developers give Python will release the Python language, and along with that there are many other libraries which interact with Python language. So now Python 3.7 is the stable version and it does not end up with any kind of error. So that is why Python 3.7 is regarded as the stable version, and the older version is Python 2.7, which is also the stable version. So we have 3.7 version and 2.7 version, which are the stable version. Then now, what are the advantages of using Python? So Python has several features that make it well suited for data science. It's an open source. First of all, you don't need to pay anything. Community development, you can also contribute to the community. It is developed under open source initiative, approved license, make it for free to use and distribute even more commercially. Then the syntax is very simple to understand and code, right? Libraries are designed for specifically data science tasks. So it also combines well with the majority of the cloud platform service providers. So what do you mean by cloud platform service providers? That AWS, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. So these are some of the cloud platform service providers in which Python can easily interact with. So there is a compatibility. So we can easily interact with the cloud service providers with using Python language. And nowadays, Python is being widely used as a source of data science. In the coming trend or history for the past 5 years data, you can see that so lot many companies are using Python as their first and their important language. Now let's okay, so now what is integrated development environment? Okay, so Python is a language just like English is a language. So to write an English language, you need some paper, you need pen, you need a cardboard in which you could write that language. Similarly, Python also need a software application in which you could write that code and it could be easily understandable to the system or to your computer. Okay, so a kind of software application was needed in which you could write your Python programs and it could manage, it could compile, and it could deploy and debug your software. Okay, it is designed to simplify the software development. So there are some tools in which you could write your Python language, and utilities have been provided in this IDE for managing your code, compiling your code, in which your Python language gets converted into your bytecode, and in the bytecode is easily understandable to your system, right? To the hardware, and you can easily deploy to the end product or the end customer and debug your software. Why debugging is used? Debugging is used for to trace out the errors, right? So that's why integrated development environments are used. So what are the features? It provides you a source code editor. It provides you an inbuilt compiler. Unlike C or C++, you don't have to compile it first into CPP and then run your code. It does automatically, and there and only there in the output you could see your in the console you could see your output. Okay, additional features which includes syntax and error highlighting. In case you end up writing your wrong syntax, it will highlight your error. It will provide the IntelliSense and auto code completion, right? And there's a version control also. In companies, there's a center repository in which you could write your code and deploy that code into a center repository, because in the companies not only one developer is working on the same code, lot many developers are working on the same piece of code. So that's why version control is very important. So inbuilt version control is also given in some of the IDs. Now we talk about what are the commonly used IDs: Spider, PyCharm, Jupyter Notebook, and Visual Studio Code. Let's learn about one by one. Spider. Spider is the ID which is supported across all the platforms, that is Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It is available as open source version. It is bundled with Anaconda distribution, which comes with all Python libraries. So what is Anaconda distribution? Okay, so this Anaconda distribution, I will give you a detailed information what is Anaconda, right, and how to install Anaconda in your local system. Just stick with me for a while. So Spider has been developed for Python and specifically data science. The interface of Spider looks something like this. Here in the left screen, you could write your code, right? In this console, you could see your output. And here you have your variable explorer, in which you could see what variable is holding what value, right? Then we talk about PyCharm. So PyCharm is another ID which is also supported across all the platforms, that is Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It is available as a community and a free version and professional, that is paid version. It is not like that you cannot work on free and open source version. You can work on it, but there are some of the features are not provided to it that you can get into the paid version. It supports only Python. It is also bundled with Anaconda distribution, which comes with all the inbuilt Python libraries and can be installed separately too. The ID or the interface looks something like this. This is the code editor in which you could write your code, and this is the project structure, right? And then you could run your code and see the output in the Python console here. Then we talk about the Jupyter Notebook. It's a web application that allows creation and manipulation of notebook documents called Notebook, right? So it is supported across all the platforms, Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and available as an open source version. The interface looks something like this, in which here these are the cells in which you could write your code and execute these cells. Okay. Then we talk about Visual Studio. Visual Studio is also another ID which is supported across all the platforms, and it supports not only Python, it supports PHP, Java, etc., and well suited for developers, right? Okay, the Visual Studio looks something like this. Here you can write your code, and here in the output terminal you could see the output. Here is the project structure. Okay, so far what we have done and what we have discussed is we have learned about what are the advantages of using Python, right? And we have studied about the basic IDs which we have used. Now the question arises, which ID do I need to use, right? Do I need to use Spider? Do I need to use Jupyter Notebook? Do I need to use PyCharm? Or do I need to use Visual Studio Code, right? So if you are working with the data science projects, okay, you can use either Spider, or you can use your Jupyter Notebooks, right? And if you are working with your web development with Python, so you could use your PyCharm, or you could use your Visual Studio Code. Okay, so these two are well suited for your data science projects, because Jupyter Notebook can be easily run on your remote system also, right? As you already been aware of and listening about the coming buzz in the industry, that is data science. Data science also involves computation power. So you need to have high GPUs or high CPUs in order to run your code in case of it, in case if you have a larger data set. So in that part you need to work on remote systems which supports high computation power. That is why AWS or your cloud service providers come into picture. Okay, right. So now in the next part we will deal about what is introduction to Anaconda. Okay, so in this part we will talk about how to download Anaconda window installer, how to set up the Anaconda, and go to the Anaconda navigator and Jupyter notebook. Okay, so this is the old screen of Anaconda distribution, right? So now the interface has been changed. I'll also show the new interface and we'll start working with that. So what is Anaconda distribution? It's an open source, no need to pay. It's the easiest way to perform R, data science and machine learning on Linux, Windows and Mac OS. Okay, so with over 15 million users worldwide, it's this industry standard for developing, testing, training on a single machine, enabling individual data scientists to quickly download 1500 plus data science packages. At the time when I made this slide, it was 1500. Now this number has been changed to 7500. Right now you can see, right, the Anaconda distribution is evolving with time. So it is being providing many such numerous packages which are used for the data science. It also have deep learning, machine learning frameworks, models with scikit-learn, TensorFlow, Theano. So these are all the libraries in which you could work with your data, right? Okay. So I gave you an example of the grocery store owner, that being a data scientist, he has given you some data and you need to now analyze your data. Okay, so I ask you, what is your first task in which you will do with your data, right? First, you will first choose what language you need to choose in order to process the data. Suppose you have chosen the Python language. Okay, what you will do, you will go to Google and download that Python language. Done. Next part is that you will choose the ID. Now for I have given you an introduction about the IDs. Now suppose you start with Spider ID, then you look for the internet and then download the Spider ID and it gets installed. Now you have your data, you have your Python language and your ID. Now you start working to analyze your data. Okay, now you find it that Python language is not sufficient to work with the data science. I need some additional libraries such as NumPy, such as Pandas. So you install again your NumPy and Pandas library onto your system. Okay, then you start working with your data. Again, at some point of time, you find another library such as Matplotlib or scikit-learn for machine learning projects. So now you can see you are increasing your overhead. It is adding complexity to download all your frameworks and your libraries, right? Instead of that, what Anaconda distribution says that you don't need to install or download anything. You just install Anaconda, rest all the libraries and rest all the frameworks have been already installed it for you inside me, right? So it gives you Python by default, it gives you all the libraries also, and it also gives you the ID. Okay, so this is what Anaconda distribution is. Okay, so now let's start with how to download Anaconda. First, you go to Google and you type here download Anaconda. Now the first link which has appeared, that is Anaconda Python R distribution free download, you click it on it. Okay, so this says your data science toolkit. Okay, now it has open source it has Conda install packages, and it can have manage environments also. These are the supporting libraries which Anaconda itself provide you. You scroll down, and in the end you get Anaconda installers, right? So Anaconda is supported in almost all the platforms, that is Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. In Windows we have two versions, 3.7 and 2.7. In Mac OS also we have two versions, 3.7 and 2.7. 3.7 and 2.7. This is what is the stable version. Now depends upon your Windows configuration, whether it is a 64-bit or a 32-bit, you need to install it. You need to click it on, and exe gets downloaded on your downloads folder, right? Okay. Okay. So now we are here that anaconda.exe gets downloaded on your downloads folder. After the download has been complete, you double click on the exe, and this kind of screen will pop up on your system. It will say welcome to Anaconda. This version might change because this has been made very long time ago. Now you need to click on next to continue. Then it asks for the license agreement, and then click on I agree. After that, it selects for the installation type. There are two types of installation you can do with it. One is the just me, that is recommended, and second one is the all users, that require admin privileges. Okay, if you are working, if you are working for your personal laptop, you can click on just me. But if you have a company paid laptop in which admin privileges are restricted, then you need to contact the admin and ask for the admin password, right? Then click on next if you are for using for your own, right? Then the setup will ask for the location. So the location or the destination folder is set in the C folders, that is by default, and goes to the Anaconda 3 folder. So don't change, try to change. And it requires additional space of 2.5 GB. This may increase in the newer versions, right? And then click on next. Okay, then there comes the two options, right, to select. First option is that add Anaconda to my path the environment variables, right, which is the recommended approach. Okay, right? And you need to check only the second option, and you don't check the first option. This comes by default and you don't need to do anything. Then click on install. After the installation is complete, then you click on next, and it will ask for installation of Microsoft Visual Studio Code, right? So this is the optional part. You can install or you cannot, you may or may not install it. It depends upon your requirement. Then it says thanks for installing Anaconda 3. So now the installation has been done. The setup has been complete. The Anaconda has been successfully installed on your system. Okay, now what next? Now you have the search bar in your start menu. Then try to look for Anaconda Navigator. For example, I am here and I am working on the Mac system, and here in the I search for Anaconda Navigator here. So this kind of logo will appear on your search bar. Okay, now you try to hit enter. After hitting enter, this kind of screen will come on your system, right? So what is this screen? What is Anaconda Navigator? As I've already told you, Anaconda is a bundle of different software applications and software packages. It not only gives you Python, it also gives you additional libraries. It gives you additional tools which are required for data science. For example, Spider IDE is being provided by Anaconda. PyCharm is also provided by Anaconda. You don't need to install PyCharm or Spider IDE explicitly from the internet. It also has the RStudio, right? It has also got the RStudio, right? So these are some of the applications in which you could work with your data science projects, right? So Jupyter Lab is an extensible environment for interactive and reproducible computing based on Jupyter Notebook and architecture. So these are basically the tools which are provided to us for the data science, right? Okay, so now let's launch the Spider ID and start working with it. So I launched the Spider ID. So it's taking time. So it's launching Spider. Okay, a new screen will come. Okay, so it's been already been launched. Okay, okay. So this kind of screen will appear after it is launched, right? Okay. So now, so this is my code editor in which here I write the code, and this is my variable explorer. Okay, I'll do one thing. I quit Spider and then again I try to launch it. Okay, so now Spider 4 has been launching. It is being initializing. Okay, now this Spider has been launched. Okay, now you can see that we are working with Python 3.7. Okay, now this is the variable explorer. This is the help. These are the plots in which you could visualize your plots, and these are the file structure. So I'm in the default user / Ashish Bansal, so I could see the directory structure of it, right? Okay, now here if you try to write anything on it, suppose I write a simple print statement and write hello world and try to execute it, so hello world gets printed. Now you can see how interactive is Python language. So with a single click you could see your output. It's not something like this in the traditional C or C++ languages. You need to write your code, then you need to compile your code, and then you can see the output. Here it's an interactive web-based application in which you could you don't need to compile anything. The compilation has been done on the runtime, right? Okay, right. Okay, so this is the Python course which I usually provide. So here we work with the introduction, the history, the features, and installation with the Anaconda. Then we start with the working with the Spider ID. Then setting up the path, basic syntax, variables, data types, conditional, arithmetic, and logical operators. Okay. So then we cover the conditional statement, that is if else, nested if else. Then loops, for loop, while loop, nested loops, enumerate function. Control statements, we have break, continue, and pass. Okay. Then we have the strings. Remember, there is no such thing like char in the Python language. Whether you write a single character or you write a large character or a long sequence of strings, so that is included in strings only. So there is no such thing like char, right? So here we deal about how we can access these strings, what are the basic operations, string slicing, functions, and methods. Then we cover the list. So lists are just like arrays in which we cover the C++. But what is the difference between list and an array? Okay, so array is something in which we could hold a similar data type, but in the Python list we could hold any kind of data type, right? Here we could see how we can access the list, the basic operation, list slicing, and function and methods. Then we have tuple is another data type in which we could access the working of tuples, accessing tuples, and functions and methods, right? And then also we'll cover the dictionary part. Working with nested dictionary is very important because in the real life examples or the real life scenarios in the industry, you have the MongoDB. So MongoDB consists of a key or value structure, right? In that you have the nested dictionaries that you need to import it from your MongoDB to your Python language and then start working with your data. So there's a dictionary structure or dictionary format. And until and unless you don't know how to work with your Python dictionaries, you cannot work with your Python MongoDB data. That's why dictionary is very important, and specifically nested dictionaries are very important. Then we have the functions. They are the default functions in which you call a function. What are the different types of function arguments, global keyword, local variables, right? Then we have the file handling part, in which you could do the file handling operations, reading data from the keyboard, opening and writing file. There are various methods, file methods such as read, write, append, right? So that you can do with it. Then we have the exception handling. In case you want your program to run and does not show any error on the output screen, there we need to find out the error handling or the exception handling with a try and accept block. Then modules. This part is very important because you not only work with Python, but you are able to work with other modules also, that you need to import it, right? Either you need to download it, or either you will need to import it from your Anaconda. So Anaconda has already been imported. Then we have the math module, we have the OS module, we have the random module, and we also deal with the packages also. Okay. So in the later part, these are the advanced functions, that is list, comprehension, zipped, sorted, reversed, and we have the command line execution, right? So in the lambda, so this is a small function in which you could write. Then in the end, we deal with the database connectivity, in which you could easily integrate your MySQL data or MongoDB data in your Python language, right? So apart from that, I also cover interview questions which are widely used in the industries, such as prime number, Fibonacci series, string reversal, remove digits from a string, or to find the longest palindrome in a string. So these kind of questions may occur while you are going or preparing for your interviews, right? So nowadays the trend of the industry has been changed. What they do is there are some online portals such as HackerRank or something like HackerRank only. They give a programming test in order to judge the programming capabilities of the student. Okay, so they will send you a link with your program, and then try to and you need to do that program. Okay, and send them a reply uh, by solving that program. Okay, so that wise they judge your programmatic capabilities, and once the round is cleared, and then you go to the next round, in which they will ask you about the programming concepts. What is the difference between list and a tuple? What are the immutable and the mutable data types? Can we hold the list inside the dictionary? Can dictionary keys can be a of list data type or not? So these are some of the questions in which you can have in your interviews. Okay, right? So let's do a quickly a prime number program. For example, you wanted to find all the prime numbers between 1 to 100, right? So what is a prime number? Let's understand this first. So prime number is a number which is divisible by itself only and 1. For example, let's take 7. So 7 is a prime number. Okay. So 7 is divisible by 1. Yes. 7 is divisible by 2. No. 7 is divisible by 3. No. 7 is divisible by 4. No. Right. So you iterate 7 divisible by 1 equal to 0. Yes. Then 7 divisible by 2 equal to 0. No. Likewise, you iterate till 7 is divisible by 7, right? Okay. And if I take 4, 4 is divisible by 1, 4 is divisible by 2. Yes, 4 is divisible by 2 equal to 0. Yes, it is divisible by 2. this means this is not a prime number. And in case 7 is a prime number because it is divisible by only 1 and it is divisible by 7. Okay, so let's try to write a program. First I'll take a for loop and I take for number in range of 2 to 100. Then I take another loop in which I will iterate from 2 to number, right? So this is for the numbers from ranging from 2 to 100. So first, in the first iteration it will come 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. But here it will ask from 2 to number. For example, here the number is 7, so it will iterate from 2 to 7. It will not iterate up till 7, it will iterate up till 2 to 6, that is 7 minus 1, right? Then I will put a condition: if number is divisible by I equal to 0, right, we need to print that number is a not prime. Then I'll say number comma it is not prime because it is been divisible. If it is divisible, then I put a break statement here so that it will not check the rest of the elements. Then else print number and it's a prime, right? Now I try to execute this. Okay, right? So now what we have got is we have got a list of numbers ranging from 2 to 100 and giving us the value that whether the number is prime or not. Here 2 is not prime number, 3 is also prime number, 4 not prime, 6 not prime, 8 is not prime, right? So similarly, this is kind of a dummy program in which this can be asked in your interviews, right? Another program I can take it is like that. It is a string. So this is a string. This string consists of some numbers and some alphabets, right? Now your task is to separate out the numbers and separate out the alphabets. So this string could be like this also: A1, B2, C3, D4, right? So I want A, B, C, D and 1, 2, 3, 4 separately, right? So how I can do this? For X in string 1, if X is digit, so is digit is a method of string which is used to find whether the particular character or a particular string is a digit or not. If it is digit, it will return true. If it is not a digit, it will return false, right? Now 1, 2, 3, 4 only gets printed. So this is how I have extracted the numbers out of the string. If I wanted to extract the alphabets, I could say, I could write here not, and I would get a ABCD. So this is how you could extract a number or an alphabet with a string, with a string, right? Right? Okay. So then I could have a simple program in which I want to find all the even and odd numbers. Okay. So this could be done by using list comprehensions also. So list comprehensions is a very effective way in which you could write your code in a one single line, right? So we have list comprehensions. Okay, so I take a loop for x in range for 1 to 101, right? And if x is divisible by 2 equal to 0, right? So this is my loop, and I take it here and put a bracket. I want to list for even number. So this is my list comprehensions. So I execute it, and then if I try to find it, so all the numbers, even numbers, I got it from 1 to 100. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I got it here. So this is very convenient and very easy method in which you could write your code and you could find it by using list comprehensions, right? Okay, so this kind of questions may be asked in your interviews, right? So this is, there are several other programs also like Fibonacci series, Armstrong, right? Then you could have the sum of prime numbers, right? So email split, for example, this is my email, ashish at the rate ibm.com, right? Got it? So this, I wanted to separate ashish and separate ibm.com. I wanted to have name in name variable and ibm.com in the another variable. So that way I could do it like this: name equal to string1 dot split, and then do a at the rate, and here in the 0. If I try to execute here, so name we have ashish, right? In place, if I do a 1 subscript here, and now in the name I get ibm.com, right? If you don't put it, then it will be handled in a list. Then you have name and ibm.com. Okay, so this is how you could do your programs. Okay, right? So now we have done some of the basic programs in Python language and get a overview of it. Okay, right. Okay, now we'll move to the next part, that is machine learning. Okay, so now what is machine learning? First of all, so there is a myth in the industry that says that, is machine learning AI? So if you tell someone that, if you tell someone that you are a machine learning engineer, so they would relate machine learning to AI, right? So this is not the case. So in this part, I will give you how to differentiate between machine learning, deep learning, and AI, right? So what is machine learning and AI? So machine learning is a subset of AI. It is not an AI. It's a subset, right? That includes abstruse statistical techniques that enable machines to improve tasks with experience. And this category includes deep learning. Until and unless you don't know machine learning, you cannot have an in-depth knowledge of artificial intelligence or deep learning. So after Python, right, you need to learn the machine learning concepts. You need to learn with your data science concepts. Then and only then you could go to deep learning, and after deep learning you could go to artificial intelligence. So this is the basic myth and basic difference between machine learning and AI, that machine learning is not an AI, but it is a subset of AI. Okay, right? And what is machine deep learning? It's a subset of machine learning that composed of algorithms that permit software to train itself to perform certain tasks like speech and image recognition. So it's a subset of machine learning with the advanced topics, like you have a image recognition part. You wanted to work with your speech part, right? That includes multi-layered neural networks, artificial ANN, neural networks. So I'll give a brief introduction about the differences between machine learning and deep learning, right? So machine learning, you deal with your data in terms of numbers, data in terms of floating point values, categorical data, numerical data. But in terms of machine learning, you have your images, you have your speech spectrograms, right? So that kind of complex data, and the complexity can be handled with terms of neural networks only, right? And in the artificial intelligence, you need to mimic human intelligence using logic, using rules, decision making. That it involves machine learning and deep learning. It involves both the things. In some part it could involve machine learning part, and in some other part it could involve deep learning part. Okay, so you cannot say machine learning is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence include machine learning and deep learning. This thing need to be understood. In artificial intelligence, the system interacts with the environment, and on the basis of environment it will set their rules, set their priorities, and set their rewards and punishments. So that is how artificial intelligence works. Now we have that a broad spectrum of jobs and opportunities in this field. So this whatever I am talking about is built on the top of Python language. Once you get full-fledged knowledge of Python, after that you work with your deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence part. And the underlying programming language is Python only. Okay, so you can search it on the internet, or you can go anywhere else. There is no such widely used language as Python, right? So artificial intelligence, as we know that it includes the subset as machine learning. Then it includes the natural language processing, that is NLP, right? In which you could have the text classification and clustering and the information retrieval, right? Sentimental analysis. There are the Twitter tweets in which you want to find out whether the tweet which someone has posted is a bad tweet or a good tweet, whether it's an offensive word or a defensive word, right? So then we have the speech to text. We need to convert speech to text, that is your subtitles, and vice versa, text to speech, right? So then we have the robotics, and hence we have this vision also. So computer vision is another emerging field in which you could work with your images, right? We have the image recognition, we have the machine vision, we have the OpenCV library that is also worked with Python language. That OpenCV library, it deals with the image recognition, face recognition, right? So likewise, we have so many fields which are emerging in the artificial intelligence, right? And you need to choose one, whether you can go with the NLP and become an expert in NLP, whether you can go to computer vision part, become an expert in computer vision, in which you could analyze the object inside that particular image, right? CCTV surveillance, CCTV camera, they take a feed for the surveillance, and out of that particular surveillance video feed, you need to identify which object is that, right? So these all applications are of artificial intelligence. Then we discuss about jobs in AI. Okay, now so far you have done your Python language and you are expert with the Python. So there are two ways in which you could go. One is you can become a Python developer and create a web-based application using Django and Flask and interact with the MySQL database connectivity and do that part. The another part is that you could go with your data science, Python with data science, and Python with web development. So now I tell you about the job opportunity in both these fields. With Python with development, web development, you got to learn only two frameworks, that is Django and Flask. And you can create your API and build a web application. right? There is only one job, that is programmer or Python developer. But if you go for the Python with data science, first the job is data scientist. In the data scientist, there's a step one in which you need to extract or you need to process your data, because the data which the client has given you is very unstructured, is very dirty. So you need to clean the data using some machine learning libraries. The libraries which include are Panda, NumPy, Matplotlib. Also, you wanted to show your data to your clients. You want to visualize your data. You wanted to see in the US country how many people are suffering from COVID-19 and how many people are not. So the graphs which appear, that could be a data scientist part, that could be a data visualization part. So that is one job. After you have cleaned your data, you have processed your data, then comes the role of a machine learning engineer, in which he will write some algorithms on the top of that data and then try to predict something. That is the work of machine learning engineer. That, as the example I have already given to you, that part in which he will try to predict the sales, right? Then we have that NLP engineer. What does the NLP engineer does? NLP engineer is a similar field of machine learning emerging from the machine learning engineer, but its scope is only specific to textual data, right? The tweaks, sentiments analysis. So this kind of job, speech to text, text to speech. So this all comes under NLP engineer. So there are various models, right, in which you could do machine learning in as using an NLP engineer. So this also is a very high demand in the industry. Okay, and the industries are not getting required engineers to do this task, right? Then again, next is computer vision or a deep learning engineer. The computer vision or a deep learning engineer works on the images. For example, in the image, you have a image of a dog and you wanted to classify whether it is a dog or a cat. So no human intervention is needed. Only by looking at the image or the machines could predict whether the image is given to you is of dog or cat. Likewise, if you do this thing, whether whether the car or the how many number of cars appeared, whether this could be also be done by using, like if you have number plate extraction, license plate extraction. First you try to identify the license plate of a car, and then you need to try to extract the text out of that particular number plate without using human intervention. The machines could do that part. That is the field of computer vision, and this is also gaining very much popularity nowadays, right? So companies like IBM and many other like are require huge amount of computer vision and deep learning engineers in the market. And the packages, the starting packages could uh, could go anywhere up to from 10 to 20 lakhs. Starting packages I'm talking about. Then there is a machine learning cloud engineer. Okay, now you have built your model, now it is ready, but you wanted to give it to your clients. Okay, so there's a AWS cloud engineer, right? So that you could work with your high computation power machines, in which you could easily deploy that part and give it to the end customers, right? So that comes with the that part. Then later stage, if you want your machine learning algorithms to be interacted with hardware, that is system on chip, edge computing, so that way that AI engineer comes into picture, in which there is the external environment or an external role that is being done. Okay, so these are the job perspectives in which if you wanted to go with the data science parts, right? But if you go with the developer part, then only one and at most two jobs are there. But here the industry is widespreading, and you can switch to any profile if you want to have, right? Okay, now I'll talk about what is machine learning. So machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence that enables machine to improve a task with experience. So what is machine learning? For example, there's a toddler who used to cover the baby steps and to reach a destination. So at the first iteration, it covers only 20 meters and he has to cover 100 meters and it falls down. In the second iteration, it covers 30 meters and then fall down. In the third iteration, it covers 40 meters and then fall down. Now, what is happening is, now the task has been given to a toddler, and now he, with experience, is trying to cope up with the task. He's trying to improve at a given task. So this is what machines do. So machine is also like a toddler in which it gains experience, it improves at a given task with experience, right? Okay. So it is important to note that all machine learning techniques are classified as artificial intelligence ones, right? So however, not all artificial intelligence could count as machine learning. So the vice versa does not hold true, because in some machine learning, some basic rule-based engines could be classified as AI, but they do not learn from experience because they do not belong to the machine learning category, right? Okay. So some of the examples which are best solved using a learning algorithm, that is recognizing patterns, facial identities or facial expressions, and then we have handwritten or spoken words, and then medical images, right? So these, in which, so now you, on the internet you could see that now the in this pandemic of COVID-19, okay, we could analyze the x-rays of patients which are having COVID-19, and we, artificial intelligence or machine learning, is try to identify whether the particular patient is having COVID-19 or not, right? So this also, we are trying to get, we are trying to train the machine so that it becomes capable of learning, right? So the medical images comes here into picture. So that is a image, in we are trying to train an image so that it could predict something, right? And we could also generate patterns, generating images or motion sequences. Then we could also recognize anomalies, that is credit card fraud, detections, some kind of unusual behavior, right? Or sensor reading goes wrong. In order to strictly monitor yourself, or a human intervention is needed. Without any human intervention, if the graph falls, or the trend is showing some unusual activity, it will report it, and some kind of failure could be avoided. Okay, then we have the future prediction, that is future stock prices or currency exchange rates, that can be also be predicted based on the previous trend. So we have the prior previous data, and we have the trend, in which we could predict from the previous trend the incoming trend. So this is the generic machine learning algorithm, and these are the images of some handwritten images, for example 671541. If we feed the image to the generic machine learning algorithm, we could identify whether the 6 is actually a 6 or not. Okay, without any human intervention, we could say that okay, this is 6, the algorithm has predicted as 6. Similarly, in the case of emails also, so we get an email as a spam or a not spam. So we develop a machine learning algorithm based on some previous trends, that this email is a spam or not spam. So it will automatically land up with your email junk box. So that could be done by using machine learning algorithm also, right? So now we'll cover the learning process, how this process takes place. We have the real world. Okay, so now these are some measuring devices in which we have the sensors, cameras, databases, right? So this data has been collected by various sources. That could be a sensor, that could be a camera, that could be a database. Then after collecting of the data, we process it, pre-processes. As I have told you, this is a separate job of pre-processing. Okay, the only job is that we collect the data. Data has been collected from databases, and then we could do the noise filtering, we could have the feature extraction, and we could do the normalization. So these are some of the concepts of the data pre-processing, right? Then we do a dimension reduction. We select only those features in which we are relevant to us, and we don't and we throw out the rest of the features which are irrelevant to us. For example, in the MySQL database, you have the ID in which does not impart any knowledge to us. We have the roll number which do not impart any features importance to us. So we could remove this. We could delete those entries of roll number. Only the roll number column, not the names or addresses. Only the roll number column, right? Then the model learning. This is the second job in which a machine learning engineer comes in and deals with the model making and then try to do that classification, regression, or clustering. Then testing of the model. This testing of the model works closely with the cloud engineer, because the machine learning model requires a huge computation power. That computation power requires for the uh, extensive resources. So that could be done by using in collaboration with your cloud engineer. Then we have the analysis, which are given to the end clients and customer. So this is how the machine learning model or the process works. Okay, now we come up the deep learning. So deep learning is a specialized field of machine learning that relies on training deep artificial neural networks, ANN, using large datasets such as images. Because in case of data with numbers or sequences, so you could make up your model in machine learning using machine learning techniques. But in case of deep learning, in case of images, so data is being in the form of images. So a single image could reveal thousands of information, thousand pieces of information, right? In a single image, you could have your cat also, you could have your foreground also, background also, you could have different color schemes. So there's a lot of information which is being depicted in your uh, single image. So that features, the relevant features you need to extract. Okay, for example, there is an image of a cat, and behind the cat there is a man standing, there is a house also. So the machine learning has to work extensively, that what exactly we need to predict. We need to find cat, we need to find home, or we need to find person. So this thing the machine has to do it. For that part, we need to have a complex network. For that complex network, artificial neural networks are used. The artificial neural networks works in the same procedure or in the same way in which our brain works. The brain is capable of handling sensory information in which sensors interact with another sensors, right? So so if we see a image of a dog or a cat, so our neurons inside the brain get activated. So similarly, in this case also, we have the artificial neurons in which one input data, these are the input data, are connected to the another layer. So these are basically our layers. These, they are interconnected with some network. So billions of neurons are connected inside the that communicate to each other using electrical and chemicals signals that enables human to feel and make decisions. So similarly here, right, these models are connected, interconnected by billions of networks, so that in the end result it will give you the target label, right? So what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning? In the machine learning part, we need to select the model first, and then we need to manually perform the feature extraction. In the previous part, this pre-processing which we have done, so this pre-processing is being done manually. So we need to select manually what are the features which required, what are the features are relevant to us, and what are the features which are irrelevant to us. So that is required. But in the deep learning part, so features or the uh, are automatically extracted along with the target label, right? So these are the learned features which itself is being recognized by the framework or the deep learning part, right? So this is the basic difference between machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning works well with the data, but Deep learning works with the complex data that involves images, speech to text, right? Okay. Now I tell you about the Python packages. So these are some of the Python packages you would be working with. So we have Python at the bottom. After that, we have Jupyter notebooks, IPython, NumPy, right? Then we have SkyPy. So these are some of the visualization libraries. Then Pandas, NumPy, right? These are the libraries in which we pre-process our data cleaning part. Then these are the machine learning libraries, scikit-learn. So these are the separate machine learning libraries provided by separate companies. So you can use scikit-learn also. Scikit is used for the imaging part, which involves image data, right? Okay. So we have the PyTables also, NetworkX. So based on different requirements, we have different libraries in which we could easily interact with Python language. So all these languages could be easily interacted with Python language, right? Now we come about to the deep learning frameworks. So deep learning frameworks have been evolved, right? So these are the frameworks which are provided by Facebook, PyTorch, Torch, Cafe, and Cafe 2, right? Then Microsoft also provided your different frameworks, CTNK, CNTK, Gluon, and MXNet is AWS. Then Google, we have Google, TensorFlow, and Keras, Theano. So these are some of the deep learning frameworks which has been provided. So now, like, which framework to use? This is the question. If you are working for the research work and if you are planning to do some research, then Facebook PyTorch is the best. Torch or PyTorch is the best because it gives you underlying capabilities to see and visualize your data more accurately and more in depth, you can say that. But if you are going for a full-fledged application in which you wanted to give it to your clients, then TensorFlow or Keras may be the best. Okay, Amazon AWS and Microsoft could also be the one you could use, right? So these are the some of the deep learning frameworks. Okay, right. So okay, so now what are the types of machine learning? So we have the artificial intelligence that enables computers to mimic human intelligence. Some fields are machine learning, robots, and computer vision. And machine learning is a subset of AI that enable machines to improve tasks with experience. In the machine learning, we have supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So supervised learning is a kind of machine learning algorithm using the labeled input and output data. So what do you mean by labeled data? So we have the data which is being collected from various sources, and you label your data that this is cat. The picture inside the image is cat. The picture inside that particular image is dog. So this is what is called labeled data. Unlabeled data is that data in which you don't label it. For example, you have thousands of images cluttered here and there, and you try to write a machine learning algorithm in which it will automatically detect that it will form a clusters of dogs and it will form a cluster of cats individually, right? So automatically it will find a cluster and you don't need to label it. So that is unlabeled data, or that is unsupervised learning, and that is clustering. Here no labeled data, it attempts at discovering hidden patterns on its own, right? So you write an algorithm in which in such a case that it will find patterns in your data and it will try to separate out whether the cats, it is to differentiate between cats or dogs, right? Not only cats and dogs, we could take another example also. As such, we could take a example of cars or trucks or buses or humans even. For example, we wanted to identify the images of trucks separately, images of buses separately, images of humans separately, and images of child separately. So this is how clustering will appear. right? But in the supervised learning part, you have that label data in which you label it, and that could be done by using classification and regression. There are two branches for it, that is classification, and another part is regression, right? So in the classification, you wanted to identify whether it is a dog or a cat, but in the regression, it deals with your numeric values. You wanted to find the house predictions, you wanted to find the salaries of employees. That is what is regression, right? For example, you give a incoming data and you wanted to predict whether the salary of a software engineer is $100, $10,000 or not, right? So that is how regression works. And the reinforcement learning takes actions to maximize the cumulative reward. For example, it interacts with the environment, and if it is and if the uh, robot or the system interacts with it, it gives the reward, otherwise it will penalize it, right? So supervised is used to train algorithm using labeled input and output data. So this is your input data, and we make a model, and it will automatically try to recover that this is a t-shirt, this is a shoe, this is a bag, right? So these are the desired target labels. In unsupervised, we do not have the label. This is the input data, that these are the pieces, and try to build a model in which it will form a cluster and try to separate out, right? Then in the reinforcement learning, which allows machines to take actions to maximize the cumulative reward, right? It has got two elements. One is the environment, and another one is the learning agent, right? Based on the reward or penalty, the agent improves its environmental knowledge to make better decisions. So this is an agent. It takes actions or the input from the environment, right? And it will get a reward, okay, for the correct actions. And for the negative or for incorrect actions, it will get a penalty. And it will try to improve its knowledge to make the better decision. Okay. Okay. Now we'll talk about the machine learning data set, that is labeled and unlabeled data set. The machine learning models require data to train. They are generally of two types that we could use to train machine learning models. One is the unlabeled data set, another is the labeled data set. So labeled data set does not have explanation or a tag associated with it, right? We do not have that label associated with it. But in the case of labeled data set, we have a tag associated with it. That is machine learning. And the data can come from various sources. It could be such as images, audio, video, text. Collecting and structuring analysis, companies, right? Companies frequently take data from the customers to set their marketing and product strategies, right? And we have the good and the bad data. Okay, so for example, I have already discussed with you that some of the data is irrelevant. That can be if it is irrelevant, then we need to remove that data. It contains duplicate samples, it is biased in one sample or one class, so that we need to remove it and make it a good to a bad data to a good data. So this is how we could transform the data using machine learning libraries, that is NumPy, Panda, Matplotlib. And also data could be obtained from multiple sources, such as Kaggle is a website in which you can have your data science projects available, UCI dataset, AWS dataset, and ImageNet consisting of a large dataset of images only, right? So ImageNet is an open source repository of images consisting of 21,841 subcategories or classes, over and over 14 billion million images, right? So these are some of the data sources. So then we have the structured or the unstructured. unstructured which have no schema, structured is a neat known schema, and we could have the relevant features in the structured data set, right? Okay, so now let's get into the working, and I'll show you a face identification project. Okay, okay, so now this is a Jupyter notebook. First of all, I will give you a basic of Jupyter notebook, and it runs on my local host, that is 8888. This can be also run remotely on your remote system, right? So this gives us the leverage of giving this gives us the leverage to uh, to work on the remote systems, right? Because we could change the here IP address, and we could work on the remote system and could run this notebook on that particular system, right? Because machine learning or deep learning uses high computation power, right? So that's why in order to quickly get the results, you need faster computation. So GPU, what is the difference between GPU and CPU? So GPU is based upon many CPU systems, right? We combine two or three more CPU systems to work with a GPU, right? So if we want to do a processing or some kind of a heavy computation, so that could be done in a matter of seconds in terms of GPU. That's why we have a in terms of gaming, because gaming requires huge extensive graphics that requires vector or numpy multiplication, addition, division. So that's why GPU systems are recommended in case of gaming structures or gaming laptops, right? Okay, now these are some of the libraries which are imported. So here I'm using TensorFlow. Along with that, I'm using NumPy also, Pandas and Seaborns for data visualization, right? So import CV2 is also another library of your OpenCV, in which you are working with computer vision projects, right? So these are the kinds of libraries which you would be needing in terms of working with your data sets and your projects, right? First, what we have done is we have written a method in which we are need to load images from the folder. So there's a separate three folders in which we have the images. Okay, first I will tell you what I'm trying to do here, right? What is the problem statement? These are some of the images of some Indian actors, that is Amir Khan, right, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan. So these are the three Indian actors which you are very familiar with, right? So I have the images stored as Amir Khan, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan. Now using the machine learning, I wanted to identify, right? The machine should identify itself कि this is Amir Khan, this is Salman Khan and this is Shah Rukh Khan, right? Okay, I don't have to identify it. So first what I did is I first imported these uh, images into my Amir, Salman and Shah Rukh folder, that is the list, right? By using this method, it reads from a particular folder and then convert it into a 64 by 64 bit image, and then append the images into that particular folder. So we get a Amir folder in which these it consists of an uh, vectorized image of 64 by cross 64 image, right? Then if you wanted to plot that images, then I have plotted all the images of Salman Khan. So this is how Salman Khan images looks like. These all images are of Salman Khan, right? Similarly, Shah Rukh, you can say that, Salman also you can see similarly. Then, okay, so here there are 433 images of Amir Khan, 64 cross 64 cross 3. 3 is for colored image. 401 images of Salman Khan and 411 of Shah Rukh Khan. 433 of Amir Khan, 401 of Salman Khan and 411 of Shah Rukh Khan images are there, right? Then what we need to do is we need to try to find we need to split the images into testing and training now, right? So first I need to shuffle that part. So what I did is I took these images of Salman, Shah Rukh and Amir and then bundled it and also labeled it. These are the labeled. This is the supervised classification which I've already told you. We are trying to do a supervised classification in which I have prior got the data, in which I labeled it that these are the images of Salman Khan, these are the images of Shah Rukh Khan, and these are the images of Amir Khan. So this is what is called as supervised machine learning algorithm, right? Then for the labeling part, I do a concatenated, right? And then I try to set a label with this images so that it could easily identify that what kind of label we are trying to predict, right? Then after shuffling, I do a train test split in which the 30% of the data is being testing and 70% of the data is for the training. So as you can see that out of the total number of samples, that is 433, 401, 4, that is close to 1200. So out of the 1200 samples that have been shuffled, 834 are used for the training the data and 411 are used for the testing of the data, right? Then I make a model. This model is a neural network model that is being used by the following these libraries, Keras libraries, right? So after making the model, so the model looks like something like this. So we feed the image of a 64 cross 64 and we get a 3 output because there are 3 labels only. In the end, we could identify whether this particular image is of Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan or Salman Khan. So in the end, we are getting only 3 output label, right? Then this is how training occurs, right? If I try to do this and it will run at this epochs. So these we are training on 834 samples and we are validating on 401 samples. So because we are training on particular thing and testing on another samples for need to find the accuracy also, right? So here at the step by step it gives us the accuracy, right? So you can see that clearly the accuracy loss is getting decreased. So here loss was there. As I've given you the example of a toddler, so toddler tries to walk it. So at the first point, the loss is very heavy because it tries to cover only 40% out of that 100 meter. So loss is 60%. So then 50, then it covers 50 meters. Then loss is 50%. Then again it covers 60 meters. Then loss is 40%. So likewise here also you can see that loss is gradually decreasing, right? 0.6, 0.5, 0.5, 0.4, 0.4, 0.2, 0.1 and 0.1, right? Ultimately loss is decreasing and the accuracy is increasing. Here you can see that accuracy is increasing from 0.42 to 0.9252, right? So this is how it works. So we are telling the model to at every epochs, at every iteration, it is trying to minimize the loss and increase the accuracy. Okay, so this is how the model works. And then we have the training and the testing graphs because we wanted to find the accuracy. So this is your training, right? So it has, this is red colored graph shows you the training accuracy and the blue color gives you the validation accuracy. So how well it is being performed on your test data, right? Then this is the loss from 2, it is getting decreased to this much, right? Okay, now in the end we have made the confusion matrix. What is the confusion matrix? It tells that how many samples were correctly classified as Amir Khan. 123 samples were classified correctly as Amir Khan and rest 26 samples were misclassified. 109 samples were classified correctly as Salman Khan and 125 samples were correctly classified as Shah Rukh Khan. and 10 samples were misclassified. So this is how we find the accuracy by plotting a confusion matrix, right? Then we try to visualize it. So we see that this is Salman Khan, right? Yes, we get a correct label out of it. And this is Amir Khan, we also get a correct label out of it. This is Shah Rukh Khan, this is Amir Khan. So look, we can see that we have almost achieved to 90% of the accuracy, right? So we are, without any human intervention, we are getting the correctly specified labels from that particular image. So this is how a machine learning or a neural networks will work. And this is your business application also. This you could install, okay, at the railway stations, okay, at the airports, in which you have your prior data of the customers, of your employees, and then you try to recognize it, whether the employee has passed from this location or not, right? So this is how the machine learning or the neural networks will work. Okay, right? Okay, so okay, so I think I'm done from my side. Okay, so now is the time you can put up your questions, and you can also put it in the chat box, right? And I can hear your questions also, right? In somebody has wrote me that, are the data sets used for training our machines, sir? uh, yes. Okay, so this depends upon the data set and the kind of problem you are solving. For example, you take a data set, right, in which is being used in the there's a two concepts. There's a transfer learning concept in machine learning also, in which you can take the data set, existing data set, and can work with your problem also, right? So that's why it totally depends upon your business logic and your problem which you are trying to solve. Okay, so this is how you can do that part. Right, is there any questions you can ask now? If you have yeah, hello Keshav.
कोई नहीं आ सकता मेरे संग भाई। कोशिश क्या कर अपने साथ लेंस नहीं, हेलकर्ट ले जा, अर्ली गेम पुश वालिर ले जा, एक्सबॉर्ग ले जा, या कोई भी ऐसा थैमोस ले जा।
Hello, hello. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now. If
मुझे
you
तो
have any
जवाब था।
doubts related to Python or machine learning or any of the concepts you don't understand, or you won't have any query, what are the trends
मुझे तो
which
टोटल
job?
5 सेकंड में पावर स्टन कर सकती है, 5 सेकंड में।
Hello.
अरे कोई नहीं उतरा भाई, पूरा एरिया अपना ही है। मैं
Okay,
बना क्या
so
था? हाँ,
Akash is asking about, sir, we wanted to know about more
समझे?
about data science. Okay, so what we can do is we can schedule another webinar in which I could explain you more about the data science technique in depth, which I can tell you about more about how to get your data science techniques working in your use for the data pre-processing, right? So that we can cover it. So well noted. This Akash will definitely get back to you, right? So I'll convey this message to the organizers, and then we can ultimately schedule this part, right? Okay. Yes. So can you share the recording session with all of us? Yes, Maria Aditya has asked this question. So yes, definitely. So I can the session has been recorded, and whosoever wants the recording can get the recording. So I'll definitely convey this message to the organizers itself also. Uh, Whosoever wants this recording can get the recording. Okay, any doubts about Python, about data science, what you have queries? So what is the like, look, these this in this time you can, what you can do is you can brush your skills, because India is expecting a huge growth in coming time in terms of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and these areas, right? So IBM is also getting a huge projects in this field, because uh, because now the industry has been changed. So earlier, when you say, this was the era of Java, in which we could see that Java was a high demanding language, and the developers were charging around $200 per hour, right? Because so in that case, now Python has become the hot selling language in the market. Okay, so why Python and NumPy are important? So another question is asked by Jay Mittal. Yes, Jay, so Python and NumPys are very important, because you cannot work the your with your data uh, in Python with list. So that has to be converted into Python NumPys or pandas, right? NumPy is your n dimensional array, right? So it works faster than lists. So that is why NumPy and pandas are used, right? So in pandas you can convert your data set CSV file into a pandas data frame, and could do the processing or the analysis of your data. So that is why pandas and NumPy are very important, right? So if you do these things with the Python itself only, so it is like that you cannot do it because of two reasons. First is that it takes lot of space in terms of computation, storage space, and also the speed of execution is slower. So that is why pandas and NumPy are really important in terms of data science. If it has not been recommended, then nobody would have been using NumPy and pandas, and then ultimately we will be working with Python language only. Although NumPys are n-dimensional list only, arrays only, we call it ND array, right? So but their dimensions have been changed, so we work with 1D list, but we work with 2D, 3D, n dimensional list, right? So this is n dimensional list which we are talking about, right? So this is how we work with. Okay, so anything else you wanted me to answer? So you can write your queries in your chat box, and then I can answer it. Okay, then I think there are no more questions to be asked. So, hello. Okay. So I guess there are no more questions to be asked. So thank you guys for your time and patience. So it was a lovely session with all you guys. So I hope to see in coming future and with your queries. So in this time, I would encourage you to stay home and stay healthy and keep on learning and keep on brushing your skills. Okay. So learn Python, learn data science, and do well in this in your society, right? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Anushka. Yes, stay home, stay safe. Thank you, Arsh. Thank you, Bhumika. Right. So it was lovely audience. Right. So we are close to 60 members, and it was a like we discussed all the concepts regarding machine learning and Python. Right. So okay. Thank you. Thank you, Aman. Thank you, Ishika. Thank you, Shivam. Thank you, Shobh. Thank you, Piyush. Okay, Jay, let me know when to end the session. Thank you, Mankirat. Thanks. It was, thank you so much. Okay, thank you all. It was very lovely to have this kind of audience, right? And thank you, everybody. Okay, so stay at home and stay healthy, right? Okay, thank you all.